I came home from work to find 3 suitcases by the front door and my wife Lisa packing the last of her designer clothes. Our 4-year-old triplets, Mason, Lily, and Noah, were sitting quietly on the living room carpet, confused and scared. That's when she looked me straight in the eyes and said the words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about our life together. "Jake, I'm leaving. Ryan's back in town, and I need to figure out what I really want. The kids will be fine. With you for a while, before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." She walked out that door without even hugging them goodbye. Mason started crying first, then Lily, and finally little Noah joined in. I stood there holding 3 heartbroken children, watching the woman I'd loved for 8 years drive away like we meant nothing to her. The signs had been there for months, but I'd been too busy juggling work at the marketing firm and helping with the triplets to notice how distant Lisa had become. We'd met in college when I was playing football, and she was studying business. Lisa was the kind of woman who commanded attention when she walked into a room confident, ambitious, and absolutely gorgeous. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world when she focused on you. We got married 3 years after graduation, and life seemed perfect. Lisa quickly climbed the ranks at her real estate firm, selling luxury homes in Lake Oswego and becoming one of their top agents. I transitioned from my college sports dreams into a steady career in digital marketing. And we bought our house in Beaverton with the white picket fence and 2-car garage. The American dream, right? When Lisa got pregnant with triplets, we were both shocked but excited. She handled the pregnancy like she handled everything else, with determination and a detailed plan. She had color-coded schedules, researched the best pediatricians, and even had the nursery professionally designed before we hit the 6-month mark. But looking back now, I think that's when things started to change. The pregnancy was rough on Lisa. She was used to being in complete control of her body, her schedule, her image. Suddenly, she was exhausted, emotional, and her carefully maintained appearance was shifting daily. She stopped going to her usual social events, claiming she didn't want people to see her like this. I tried to reassure her that she was beautiful, that this was temporary, but she'd just give me this tight smile and change the subject. When Mason, Lily, and Noah were born, Lisa struggled with the chaos that 3 babies bring to any household. Despite hiring a night nanny and having my parents help out constantly, she seemed overwhelmed in a way I'd never seen before. She'd always been someone who thrived under pressure, but motherhood was different. It wasn't a project she could complete or a deal she could close. It was messy, unpredictable, and never-ending. The first year was brutal for both of us, but I assumed it was just the normal adjustment period everyone warned us about. Lisa threw herself into work as soon as she could, often staying late at the office or scheduling weekend showings. Said she needed to maintain her client relationships, that we couldn't afford for her to lose momentum in such a competitive industry. I understood, or at least I tried to. Someone had to pay for the bigger house, the 3 sets of everything we now needed. The increased grocery bills and medical expenses. As the months passed, I found myself handling more and more of the daily parenting duties. It was the one. Getting up for middle-of-the-night feedings when the nanny was off duty. I was the one scheduling pediatrician appointments around my work meetings. I was the one reading bedtime stories and kissing scraped knees and mediating toddler disputes. Over toys, Lisa would come home from work, give the kids a quick hug, and then retreat to her office to catch up on emails or prepare for tomorrow's presentations. I started noticing how she'd tense up when the kids would get too loud or messy. When Mason would spill his juice, or Lily would have a meltdown over the wrong-colored sippy cup, Lisa would get this look on her face like she was calculating the fastest way to escape the situation. She'd hand them off to me with excuses about needing to return important calls or finish urgent paperwork. The social isolation was hard on her too. Our old friends, the couples we used to go out with regularly, started having their own kids around the same time. But where they seemed to embrace the chaos of playdates and family barbecues, Lisa would find reasons to decline invitations. She'd complain that other parents were letting themselves go, that she couldn't relate to conversations about sleep schedules and diaper brands. Her relationship with her own family became strained as well. Lisa's parents, Tom and Diana, were thrilled to be grandparents and wanted to be involved in every milestone. But Lisa found their constant advice and drop-in visits suffocating. She'd make sarcastic comments about her mother's outdated parenting ideas, and would visibly cringe when her father would get down on the floor to play with the kids, his knees creaking and his shirt getting wrinkled. What I didn't know at the time was that Lisa had been in contact with Ryan, her college boyfriend who'd moved to Seattle after graduation to work for a tech startup. They'd broken up right before our senior year when he'd chosen his career over their relationship, and Lisa had been devastated. She'd thrown herself into her studies and eventually into our relationship. But apparently, she'd never fully gotten over the idea of what might have been. Ryan had built a successful company and was now worth millions. He'd reached out to Lisa through social media about 6 months before she left, initially just to congratulate her on some award she'd won at work. But their conversations had gradually become more frequent and more personal. He'd tell her about his penthouse apartment in downtown Seattle, his travels to Europe for business, his freedom to make decisions without considering anyone else's needs. Meanwhile, Lisa was dealing with potty training accidents, grocery shopping for a family of 5, and having her designer clothes stained by tiny fingerprints. She'd look at Ryan's Instagram posts of fancy restaurants and exotic locations and then look around at our lived-in house with toys scattered everywhere and wonder where her old life had gone. The breaking point came during Mason's 4th birthday party. We'd planned a small celebration in our backyard with just family and a few neighbor kids. Lisa had insisted on hiring a professional photographer and caterer, wanting everything to look perfect for the pictures she'd post online. But kids being kids, it quickly became chaotic. Someone spilled punch on the white tablecloth she'd specifically ordered. Lily had a complete meltdown when another child touched her balloon. Noah decided he didn't like chocolate cake anymore and started crying when we sang happy birthday. Instead of laughing it off like I did, Lisa looked mortified. She kept apologizing to the photographer, trying to control every moment, getting more frustrated as the afternoon went on. When Mason accidentally knocked over a decorative centerpiece while trying to blow out his candles, Lisa snapped, muttered something under her breath about not being able to have one nice thing, and disappeared into the house. I found her in our bedroom, scrolling through her phone with tears in her eyes. When I asked what was wrong, she showed me a photo Ryan had posted from some work conference in Paris. He was at a rooftop bar, champagne in hand, city lights sparkling behind him. The caption read, "Living my best life. No regrets." That night, after all the guests had gone home and the kids were asleep, Lisa and I had the most honest conversation we'd had in years. She told me she felt trapped, that she loved the kids but didn't know if she was cut out for this kind of life. She said she felt like she'd lost herself somewhere between pregnancy weight gain and parent-teacher conferences. She wondered aloud if we'd gotten married too young, if she'd settled for a safe choice instead of following her real dreams. Tried to reassure her that what she was feeling was normal, that lots of parents struggle with the adjustment. I suggested we could hire more help, take a vacation together, maybe even consider couples therapy. But she just shook her head and said it wasn't about needing more support. It was about wanting a completely different life. 3 weeks later, Ryan posted a photo from Portland's airport with the caption, "Back in the Pacific Northwest for business. Excited to reconnect with old friends." That same day, Lisa came home from what she said was a work dinner, but she had this glow about her that I hadn't seen in years. She was checking her phone constantly, smiling at messages she wouldn't let me see. The next few days were a whirlwind of secretive phone calls, sudden client meetings that couldn't be rescheduled, and a distance between us that felt more final than anything we'd experienced before. She started talking about needing space to think. It's about feeling suffocated by our routine, about wondering what other paths her life might have taken. I thought we were going through a rough patch that we could work through together. I had no idea she was planning to abandon our family entirely. I had no idea that in just a few days, I'd be a single father trying to explain to 3 4-year-olds why their mommy wasn't coming home for dinner anymore. The storm arrives. Ryan had rented a luxury apartment in the Pearl District for what he claimed was a 3-month consulting contract with a Portland startup. The timing was convenient, almost too convenient. Within days of his arrival, Lisa's behavior changed dramatically. She started taking phone calls in another room, her voice dropping to whispers whenever I walked by. Her usual routine of coming straight home after work shifted to sudden stops at coffee shops, extended lunch meetings, and weekend property showings that seemed to stretch longer than any client consultation should. The kids noticed the change before I fully understood what was happening. Mason, always the most perceptive of the three, started asking why Mommy seemed different. Lily would try to show Lisa her drawings from preschool, only to be told, "Not now, sweetie. Mommy's busy with important work stuff." Noah, the most sensitive, began clinging to me more during bedtime stories, as if he sensed something was shifting in our family dynamic. One evening in late September, Lisa announced she needed to attend a real estate conference in Seattle over the weekend. She'd never mentioned this conference before, and when I offered to watch the kids while she was gone, she seemed almost relieved that I wasn't asking more questions. She packed more clothes than a 2-day conference would require. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. And left Friday morning with a kiss on my cheek that felt more like a goodbye than a see you soon. While she was gone, I decided to surprise her by cleaning out her office space and organizing the paperwork that had been piling up on her desk. That's when I found the printed emails between her and Ryan. Messages that started professionally enough, discussing his business ventures and her real estate successes, but quickly evolved into something much more personal and intimate. He wrote about how successful he'd become, about his penthouse view of Elliott Bay, about the freedom he had to travel wherever he wanted without having to consider anyone else's schedule. She responded with complaints about feeling trapped in suburban mom life, about missing the excitement and unpredictability of their college relationship, about wondering what her life would look like if she'd made different choices 8 years ago. The most devastating message was from the week before, where Ryan had written, "I've been thinking about you constantly since we started talking again. I made the biggest mistake of my life when I chose my career over us. I'm successful now, financially stable, and I know what I want. I want you, Lisa. Come to Seattle with me. We can have the life we always talked about, just the two of us, no complications." Her response made my hands shake as I read it. I think about it every day. This isn't the life I imagined for myself. Jake is a good man, but he's content with ordinary. You and I were always meant for something bigger. I just need to figure out how to make this transition as smooth as possible for everyone involved. I printed out every message and sat in her office chair, reading through months of emotional betrayal while my children slept peacefully in their beds upstairs. The woman I'd married, the mother of my children, had been planning to leave us for months while I'd been worried about bedtime routines and grocery lists. When Lisa returned from her conference on Sunday night, she was different in a way that went beyond her usual post-work exhaustion. She seemed energized, almost glowing, but also distant in a way that felt final. She barely interacted with the kids during dinner, claiming she was tired from all the networking and presentations. After we put them to bed, I confronted her with the printed emails. She didn't deny anything. If anything, she seemed relieved that the secret was finally out in the open. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, same table where we'd fed our babies their first solid foods, explained that she'd realized she wasn't happy and hadn't been happy for a long time. "Jake, you're a wonderful father and a good husband, but we want different things," she said, her voice steady and matter-of-fact. "Ryan and I have a connection that we never fully explored. He can offer me opportunities, travel, excitement, understands my ambitions in a way that you never have." I asked her about the children, about Mason's upcoming soccer registration, about Lily's dance recital next month, about Noah's speech therapy appointments that we'd been attending together. She waved her hand dismissively and said, "You're so much better with them than I am anyway. They barely notice when I'm not around. You've been essentially a single parent for the past 2 years." That wasn't true, and we both knew it, but it seemed to be the story she was telling herself to make her decision easier to live with. She'd convinced herself that her children didn't need her, that I was somehow more naturally suited for the daily grind of parenthood. that her leaving would barely impact their lives. The next few weeks were a blur of tense conversations, sleeping arrangements, and trying to maintain normalcy for the kids while our marriage fell apart behind closed doors. Lisa started spending more time at Ryan's apartment, claiming she needed space to think clearly about our situation. She'd come home to shower and change clothes, sometimes bringing expensive flowers or gourmet coffee that Ryan had bought for her. Mason started asking why Mommy smelled different when she hugged him goodnight. The expensive perfume Ryan had given her was so unlike the subtle fragrance she'd worn throughout our marriage that even a 4-year-old could detect the change. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in October. I'd picked up all 3 kids from their after-school program and was helping them with their art projects when Lisa walked through the front door with 2 large suitcases. She didn't say hello to the children, didn't ask about their day, didn't even acknowledge the Halloween decorations they'd spent the afternoon making for the windows. She went straight upstairs and started packing with an efficiency that suggested she'd been planning this moment for weeks. When Mason followed her upstairs and asked if she was going on another work trip, she barely looked at him as she folded clothes into her designer luggage. "Mommy has some important business to take care of," she said, not bothering to get down to his eye level or offer any real explanation. "You'll be fine with Daddy. He takes good care of you." That's when I realized she wasn't just leaving for a few days or even a few weeks. She was packing winter clothes, her jewelry box, photo albums from before we were married. She was taking everything that mattered to her, and none of it included anything related to our children. By the time she loaded everything into her car, Ryan had arrived to help her. He sat in the driver's seat of his rented BMW engine running, checking his phone impatiently while she finished gathering her belongings. He didn't come inside to meet the children whose lives he was helping to destroy. He didn't even get out of the car. When I realized what was happening, I called my sister Emma, who lived downtown and had always been close to our family. Emma was everything Lisa wasn't: warm, nurturing, patient with children, content with simple pleasures. She taught 2nd grade at a local elementary school and spent her free time volunteering at animal shelters and community gardens. Emma had never married, claiming she hadn't found the right person yet, but she'd been an incredible aunt to Mason, Lily, and Noah since the day they were born. She knew their favorite bedtime stories, remembered their food preferences, and could calm any tantrum with patience and creativity that I'd always admired. "I need help," I told her over the phone, watching through the kitchen window as Lisa loaded the last of her things while my children played in the living room, unaware that their mother was about to walk out of their lives. "Lisa's leaving. Tonight, she's moving to Seattle with Ryan, and I don't know how to explain this to the kids." Emma didn't ask for details or express surprise. She simply said, "I'll be right over," and hung up the phone. When Lisa finally came back inside to say goodbye, the contrast between her hurried, comfortable farewell and Emma's arrival 20 minutes later couldn't have been more stark. Lisa gave each child a quick hug, promised she'd call them soon, and walked out the door without looking back. Emma walked in, took one look at 3 confused children and their devastated father, rolled up her sleeves and asked what she could do to help. That night, Emma helped me explain to Mason, Lily, and Noah that Mommy had decided to live in a different city for a while, but that Daddy would always be there to take care of them. She stayed until they fell asleep, helped me clean up the dinner dishes, and promised to come back the next day after work to help with the adjustment. As I watched her interact with my children, I realized I was seeing qualities I'd somehow missed during all the years she'd been in our lives as Lisa's younger sister. Emma had a natural way with kids that Lisa had never developed, a patience for their questions and needs that Lisa had always treated as interruptions to more important adult concerns. Lisa called 3 days later from Seattle to check in, but it was a brief, superficial conversation that felt more like an obligation than genuine concern. She asked if the kids were doing okay, told me she'd send money for their expenses, and promised she'd figure out a visitation schedule once she got settled in her new life. What she didn't ask was whether Mason was still having nightmares, whether Lily had cried herself to sleep the past 2 nights, or whether Noah had stopped eating his favorite foods because he associated mealtime with family togetherness. That no longer existed. Those were the details Emma noticed during her daily visits to help with dinner and bedtime routines. Emma was the one who suggested we rearrange the living room furniture so the kids wouldn't keep looking toward the front door, expecting their mother to walk through it. Emma was the one who helped me research child psychologists who specialized in helping young children cope with parental abandonment. Within 2 weeks of Lisa's departure, Emma had essentially become a part of our daily routine. She'd stop by after work to help with homework and bath time. She'd bring groceries on weekends and help me meal prep for the busy weekdays ahead. She'd take the kids to the park on Saturday mornings so I could catch up on laundry and house cleaning that had become overwhelming without a partner. The most remarkable thing was how naturally the children responded to her presence. Mason started showing her his school projects with the same enthusiasm he used to reserve for his mother. Lily began asking Emma to braid her hair before preschool, something Lisa had always been too rushed to do properly. Noah started calling Emma's name when he woke up from bad dreams, knowing she'd come running just as quickly as I would. Ryan's influence over Lisa became more apparent through their occasional phone calls with the children. She'd describe expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Vancouver, plans to travel to Europe for the holidays. She spoke about her new life, with an excitement she'd never shown when talking about family activities or the kids' milestones. The children would hang up from these calls feeling more confused than comforted. They couldn't understand why Mommy sounded so happy living somewhere else, why she kept talking about places they'd never been and people they'd never met, why she never asked about their Halloween costumes or their upcoming school programs. Emma, on the other hand, remembered everything. She knew which days were library days at school, which child needed help tying shoes, who had been struggling with nightmares, and who had been acting out during transitions. She brought the kind of consistent, attentive care to our family that Lisa had never provided even before Ryan's reappearance in her life. By December, 3 months after Lisa's departure, it became clear that her move wasn't temporary or experimental. She'd enrolled in graduate school courses in Seattle, signed a lease on an apartment with Ryan, and started talking about long-term career opportunities in Washington state. When I asked her about visitation arrangements for the holidays, she said she was too busy settling into her new life to travel back to Portland. The kids spent Christmas morning opening presents from their Aunt Emma, who had quietly become the most stable female presence in their lives, while their mother called for a brief video chat from Ryan's penthouse, promising to send gifts that arrived weeks later without any personal notes or evidence that she'd chosen them herself. That's when I began to understand that Lisa hadn't just left our marriage. She'd left motherhood entirely, and she'd done it with a relief that was both heartbreaking and liberating for the rest of us. The final blow came on a cold February morning, when I discovered Lisa had cleaned out our joint savings account, not just her half, but everything we'd saved for the kids' college funds, our emergency money, even the small inheritance I'd received from my grandmother that was supposed to be set aside for Mason, Lily, and Noah's future. I stared at my phone screen, showing a balance of $12.37 in what had been a $40,000 account just days before. When I called the bank, they confirmed that Lisa had transferred the money to a new account in Seattle, one that only had her name on it. Legally, she had every right to do it since it was a joint account, but morally, she'd just stolen our children's security. The phone call I made to her that morning was unlike any conversation we'd ever had. For the first time in our entire relationship, I felt genuine anger toward her, not just disappointment or hurt, but real fury at what she'd done to our family. "You took the kids' college money," I said when she answered, not bothering with pleasantries. "I took my half of our savings," she replied coolly, "and I needed startup money for my new life. Ryan and I are looking at investment properties in Seattle. This is a business opportunity that could set us up for decades. Was money we saved together for our children's education. Money from my grandmother's estate that was supposed to be for them. Jake, you're being dramatic. The kids are 4 years old. You have plenty of time to save up college money again. Besides, they're smart kids. They'll probably get scholarships." The casual way she dismissed our children's financial security, combined with the excitement in her voice when she talked about her investment plans with Ryan, made something snap inside me. This wasn't just abandonment anymore. This was deliberate sabotage of the family she'd left behind. "I want a divorce," I said quietly. "And I want full custody of Mason, Lily, and Noah." For the first time since this whole mess started, Lisa seemed genuinely surprised. Don't be ridiculous. You can't afford a divorce lawyer, especially not now. And I'm not giving up my parental rights just because I needed some space to figure things out. That phrase, needed some space, felt like a slap in the face. She'd been gone for 5 months, had moved in with another man, had started a completely new life in another state, and had just stolen our children's college fund. But in her mind, she was just taking some space. Lisa, you haven't called. The kid's in 3 weeks. You missed Noah's birthday completely. You've never once asked about Lily's progress in dance class or Mason's reading level. You're not taking space. You've abandoned your family. I've been busy building a future, she snapped. Something you've never understood how to do. You're content with your little marketing job and your suburban house and your boring routine? I want more than that for my life. Then sign the papers when I file them. Let me give these kids the stable life they deserve. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that I thought she'd hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice had taken on the calculating tone I recognized from her business negotiations. You'll never make it as a single father. Jake, you can barely handle bedtime with all 3 of them without calling Emma for backup. And speaking of Emma, don't think I haven't noticed how conveniently available she's become since I left. My sister always had a crush on you in college. How long before you to make that little arrangement official? The accusation caught me completely off guard, partly because it touched on something I hadn't fully acknowledged even to myself. Emma's presence in our lives had become essential, not just because she helped with the children, but because she brought a sense of peace and stability that our house had been missing long before Lisa left. This isn't about Emma. This is about you abandoning your responsibilities and stealing money from your own children. I'll fight you on the custody. I may not be ready to be a full-time mother right now, but I'm not signing away my rights to my children, especially not so you can play house with my sister. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing in my kitchen, holding a phone and feeling more alone than I had since the day she'd packed those suitcases. That evening, when Emma came over to help with dinner, as had become our routine, I told her about the missing money and Lisa's threats about the custody battle. Emma listened quietly while she helped Mason with his spelling homework, her face growing more serious with each detail I shared. She took their college fund, Emma asked, keeping her voice low so the children couldn't hear. Every penny. And she's threatening to fight me for custody if I file for divorce, even though she hasn't been here for months. Emma finished helping Mason with his worksheet and sent him to play with his siblings before turning to face me fully. Jake, I need to tell you something, and I hope it doesn't change things between us or affect how I can help with the kids. My heart started racing, worried that she was about to tell me she couldn't keep coming around, that the situation had become too complicated, or that Lisa had somehow convinced her to step back from our lives. Lisa called me yesterday, Emma continued. Wanted to know if I was, in her words, taking advantage of the situation to pursue something romantic with you. Joy, she accused me of using her children to get close to their father. I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger. Emma, I'm sorry. I had no idea she was harassing you two. You've been nothing but helpful and kind to our family. That's not what I need to apologize for, Emma said, looking down at her hands. The thing is, Jake, she wasn't entirely wrong. I do have feelings for you. I've had feelings for you for years, actually, long before Lisa ever left. But I need you to know that I never acted on those feelings, never said anything, never tried to interfere with your marriage. The confession hung in the air between us while I processed what she'd said. Emma, who had been my rock through the worst months of my life, who had shown up every day without being asked, who had loved my children when their own mother couldn't be bothered to call them. I also need you to know, she continued, that everything I've done to help you and the kids, I did because they needed help and because you're my family. Not because I was hoping it would lead to anything romantic. If my feelings make this too complicated, I can step back. I can find other ways to help with Mason, Lily, and Noah that don't put you in an awkward position. Before I could respond, Noah came running into the kitchen, upset because Lily had taken his favorite toy car. Emma immediately shifted into aunt mode, kneeling down to his level and listening to his complaint with the same serious attention she'd give to an adult problem. She helped him negotiate with his sister, found a fair solution that made both kids happy, and sent them back to play without any tears or tantrums. Watching her with my son, seeing how naturally she moved between supporting me emotionally and caring for my children practically, I realized that what I felt for Emma wasn't just gratitude or relief at having help. It was something much deeper and more genuine than anything I'd felt with Lisa in years. "Emma," I said after the kids had gone back to their games, "I think I've been falling in love with you for months. I was too scared to admit it to myself because of everything that's been happening." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and for a moment, I was terrified that I'd just ruined the best relationship in my life by being honest about my feelings. But I continued, "I can't ask you to take on someone else's mess. I'm going through a custody battle with your sister. I have 3 kids who need stability, not more upheaval. I have no money, no savings, and I'm probably about to pay thousands of dollars in legal fees just to keep my children. It's not fair to ask you to take on." Emma stood up and took my hands in hers. "Jake, those kids aren't someone else's mess. They're my niece and nephews, and I love them. They've been part of my life since the day they were born. Lisa may have given birth to them. She stopped being their mother the day she decided Ryan's penthouse was more important than their bedtime stories." That night, after the kids were in bed, Emma and I talked until nearly midnight about what a relationship between us would mean, how it would affect the children, what it would do to an already complicated family dynamic. We agreed to take things slowly, to focus on the kids' stability above everything else, and to be completely honest with each other about concerns or problems as they arose. What we didn't know was that Lisa had hired a private investigator to document my life in Portland, looking for anything she could use in a custody battle. Photos of Emma coming and going from our house, pictures of her at the kids' school events, evidence of what Lisa's lawyer would later call introducing the children to a new romantic relationship before the divorce was finalized. The first I learned about the investigation was when a process server showed up at my office with papers for a custody hearing. Lisa was claiming that I was an unfit parent who had exposed our children to inappropriate relationships and unstable living situations. She wanted joint custody with the right to take Mason, Lily, and Noah to Seattle for extended visits. And she wanted me to pay child support based on the income I'd had when we were together. Not accounting for the legal fees and financial devastation her departure had caused, the irony wasn't lost on me that the woman who had abandoned her children for another man had stolen their college fund to invest in real estate with her boyfriend, who hadn't called them in weeks, was claiming that I was the unstable parent, because I had fallen in love with someone who actually showed up for their school events and helped them with homework. That evening, as I read through the legal documents while Emma helped the kids with their baths, I realized that the fight for my family was just beginning. Lisa wasn't just threatening to take my children away from the only stable home they'd known since she left. She was trying to destroy the one relationship that had brought joy and peace back into our lives. But as I listened to Emma reading bedtime stories to 3 children who had started calling her by name when they were scared or hurt, I knew I had to fight for all of us. Lisa had made her choice when she walked out that door with Ryan. Now, it was time for me to make mine. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in March. It's almost 7 months after Lisa had walked out our front door. My lawyer, David Chen, was a family law specialist who had agreed to work with me despite my limited financial resources. He'd reviewed Lisa's claims and told me bluntly that her case was weaker than she thought, especially given her extended absence and financial abandonment of the children. What I didn't expect was the bombshell that arrived 3 days before our court date. David called me at work with news that would change everything. "Jake, you need to sit down for this. Lisa's attorney just filed a motion to withdraw from her case. Apparently, there's been some kind of development in Seattle that's affecting her ability to proceed with the custody battle." "What kind of development?" "I'm not entirely sure yet, but I've heard through colleagues that there's been some kind of fraud investigation involving her boyfriend Ryan's business dealings. Something about misappropriated investor funds and potential federal charges." That evening, Emma came over as usual to help with dinner and homework, but I was distracted by what David had told me. After we got the kids settled with a movie, I shared the news about Lisa's legal troubles. "You think this means she dropped the custody case?" Emma asked. "I don't know. But if Ryan's in serious legal trouble, it might affect her financial ability to fight this battle. The answer came sooner than expected. The next morning, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, it was Lisa, and she sounded nothing like the confident, dismissive woman I'd spoken to over the past months. "Jake, I need to talk to you about the custody hearing," she said, her voice shaky and uncertain. "What about it?" "I want to postpone it. Things here are complicated right now. Ryan's business is under investigation by the FBI, and I might need to testify in federal court. I can't deal with a custody battle at the same time." Irony was almost laughable. The woman who had left her children for a more exciting life with a successful businessman was now dealing with the reality that her new partner was apparently a white-collar criminal. "Lisa, I'm not postponing anything. You filed these papers claiming I was an unfit parent. Either you want to fight for custody of your children, or you don't." "It's not that simple, Jake. The investigation. They've frozen Ryan's assets while they sort out what money belongs to investors and what was legitimately his. The apartment we were renting, the car he bought for me, even some of the jewelry he gave me, it might all have been purchased. With stolen money, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and genuine concern. Satisfaction that Lisa's perfect new life was crumbling, but concern about how this would affect her mentally and what it might mean for any future relationship she'd have with Mason, Lily, and Noah. "Where does this leave you?" I asked. "Had to move out of the apartment. I'm staying in a hotel right now, but I can't afford that much longer. My real estate license in Washington is suspended pending the investigation because Ryan was my business partner on several deals. Jake, I think I need to come back to Portland." The words I'd been hoping to hear for months now filled me with dread instead of relief. Lisa coming back would complicate everything Emma and I had built with the children. It would disrupt their stability just when they'd finally adjusted to their new normal. "What are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I should never have left you and the kids. I should never have gotten involved with Ryan. I want to come home and try to fix our family. Lisa, you can't be serious. You've been gone for 7 months. You emptied our savings account. You haven't called the kids in weeks. And now, just because your new life fell apart, you want to come back and pretend like nothing happened. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still their mother, Jake. I'm still your wife. We never actually filed for divorce. Technically, we're still married." That technical detail hit me like a punch to the gut. In all the chaos of single parenting and legal battles, I'd never actually completed the divorce paperwork. Lisa was legally still my wife, and she was legally still the children's mother, with equal rights to custody and decision-making. Things have changed, Lisa. I've changed. The kids have adapted to life without you." "You mean you've adapted?" "To life with my sister," she said, her voice taking on the sharp edge I remembered from our worst arguments. "I know about you and Emma. I have pictures, Jake. Pictures of her staying overnight. Pictures of her at the kids' school events. Pictures of you two holding hands at the park. The private investigator's photos? Of course she still had those, even if her legal case was falling apart. Emma has been here for your children when you weren't. She's been here for me when you abandoned our family. If you have a problem with that, should have thought about it before you decided Ryan's penthouse was more important than your kids' bedtime stories." "I want to see them," Lisa said, ignoring my accusation. "I want to see my children. I'll be in Portland tomorrow." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone and dreading the conversation I'd have to have with Emma and the kids. That evening, I sat Mason, Lily, and Noah down for what was probably the most difficult conversation of their young lives. They'd accepted that Mommy was living in Seattle and wasn't coming back anytime soon. They'd adapted to having Aunt Emma as their primary female caregiver. They'd settled into routines that didn't include their mother's presence. "Kids, I need to tell you something important. Mommy is coming back to Portland tomorrow, and she wants to see you." The reactions were not what I expected. Mason, always the most thoughtful, asked, "Is she moving back home?" "I don't know, buddy. She didn't say." Lily, who had seemed to adjust best to Lisa's absence, started crying. "I don't want things to change again, Daddy. I like how things are now." Noah, barely understanding the full implications, asked, "Will Aunt Emma still come for dinner?" Their responses broke my heart because they highlighted how much stability Emma had brought to their lives and how much they feared losing that security again. They'd been abandoned once by their mother, and now they were afraid it might happen. Again, when Emma arrived that evening, I took her aside and explained about Lisa's call and her plan to return to Portland. Emma's face went through several emotions: shock, disappointment, and finally, a resigned sadness that made me want to protect her from whatever was coming next. "What does this mean for us?" she asked quietly. "I don't know. Legally, she's still my wife and their mother. I can't just refuse to let her see the kids. But Emma, I need you to know that what we have isn't something I'm willing to give up easily. And if she wants to reconcile, if she wants to rebuild your family, then she's 7 months too late. The family she left doesn't exist anymore. We've all moved on, and I'm not going backwards just because her new life didn't work out the way she planned." The next afternoon, Lisa arrived at our house in a rental car, looking very different from the confident businesswoman who had left. With designer luggage and big dreams, her clothes were wrinkled, her hair was unkempt, and she had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping well. The kids' reaction to seeing their mother was a mixture of excitement and confusion. Mason hugged her tentatively. Lily hung back behind me, and Noah seemed to have forgotten who she was entirely. The woman who had once been the center of their world was now almost a stranger. "Hi, babies," Lisa said, kneeling down to their level. "Mommy missed you so much. Where have you been?" Mason asked, with the directness that only children can manage. "I was in Seattle, but I'm back now. I came back because I realized that you three are the most important things in my life." Emma arrived just as Lisa was trying to convince the kids to show her their bedrooms and how much they'd grown. The tension in the room when the two sisters saw each other was immediate and palpable. "Hello, Emma," Lisa said coolly. "Thank you for helping with my children while I was away." "Hello, Lisa. They're wonderful kids. You should be proud of them." "I am proud of them." It's bold. "And I'm grateful that you were here to help Jake. But now that I'm back, I think we can handle things as a family." The dismissive way she spoke to Emma, as if Emma's months of dedication and love were just temporary babysitting that could be easily replaced, made my anger flare. "Emma isn't going anywhere," I said firmly. "She's been part of this family for months, and the kids need consistency, not more upheaval." "Jake, can we talk privately?" Lisa asked, her tone suggesting it wasn't really a request. We went to the kitchen while Emma helped the kids with their afternoon snack. Lisa immediately launched into what sounded like a prepared speech about second chances and family forgiveness. "I know I made mistakes, but people deserve opportunities to make things right. I'm ready to be the wife and mother I should have been all along. I've learned from this experience, and I want to rebuild what we had." "What we had was broken long before Ryan showed up," I replied. "You were unhappy being a mother, Lisa. You were miserable in our life together. Coming back because your other option didn't work out isn't the same as actually wanting to be here. That's not fair. I was overwhelmed and made poor choices, but that doesn't mean I don't love my children." "Then where have you been for the past 7 months? Where were you when Noah had nightmares every night for weeks? Where were you when Mason started having trouble in school because he couldn't concentrate? Where were you when Lily asked me every day why Mommy didn't love her anymore?" Lisa's face crumpled at that last detail, and for a moment, I saw genuine remorse in her expression. "I can make up for all of that," she said quietly. "I can be better, Lisa. It's not just about you making up for lost time. It's about the fact that we've all moved on. The kids are happy and stable now. Emma and I. We're building something real together. I'm not going to destroy that just because you've decided you want back into a life you voluntarily left." That's when Lisa played her final card, the one I should have seen coming. "If you don't give our marriage another chance, I'll take the kids to Seattle with me. I still have legal rights as their mother, and I can find work there once the investigation is over. You'll see them for holidays and summer vacations if you're lucky." The threat hung in the air between us, and I realized that Lisa's return wasn't about love or family or second chances. It was about power and control, and her inability to accept that her choices had consequences she couldn't simply undo. But what Lisa didn't know was that her legal position wasn't as strong as she thought, and the investigation into Ryan's business dealings had revealed information that would change everything about our custody situation. What Lisa didn't realize was that David Chen had been busy during her week of ultimatums and threats. The FBI investigation into Ryan's business had uncovered something that would completely destroy her custody case. Evidence that she had knowingly participated in money laundering through the real estate investments she'd made with stolen funds. The morning Lisa was supposed to file her petition to take the children to Seattle, federal agents knocked on her hotel room door. The same savings account money she'd taken from our family had been used as her contribution to several property deals that were now evidence in a federal fraud case. Her name was on contracts, wire transfers, and investment documents that tied her directly to Ryan's criminal enterprise. David called me with the news while I was at work, trying to concentrate on marketing campaigns when my entire future felt uncertain. "Jake, Lisa's been arrested. Money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and several other federal charges. She's not going anywhere for a while, and she's definitely not getting custody of anyone's children." I felt a strange combination of relief and sadness. Relief that the threat to my family was over, but sadness that Mason, Lily, and Noah would have to grow up knowing their mother was in federal prison. When I picked up the kids from their after-school program that day, I dreaded having to explain why Mommy wouldn't be coming back again, but their reaction surprised me. Mason, with his 4-year-old wisdom, said, "Daddy, Mommy seems sad when she was here. Aunt Emma never seems sad when she's with us." Lily added, "Aunt Emma knows how to braid hair better, and she remembers my favorite color." Noah, ever practical, asked, "Can Aunt Emma read us stories tonight?" That evening, Emma came over, as she had every day for the past 8 months, but this time the atmosphere was different. The uncertainty that had hung over our relationship for the past week was gone. Lisa's legal troubles had effectively ended any possibility of her disrupting our family again. After the children were in bed, Emma and I sat on the couch, where we'd spent so many evenings talking about everything from the kids' school projects to our hopes for the future. "So what happens now?" Emma asked. "Now we get to find out what our life looks like without someone trying to take it away from us," I replied, taking her hand. "And the kids?" "The kids have been calling you Aunt Emma since they could talk. But lately I've noticed Noah sometimes just calls you Emma, like you're not just their aunt anymore." She smiled at that. "Aunt." "I've noticed it too. Sometimes I feel more like their mother than their aunt. Would you want that to be official? Someday, I mean after the divorce is finalized, and after we've had time to build our relationship properly?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Jake, I've been in love with those children since the day they were born. Being their stepmother wouldn't be taking on someone else's responsibility. It would be making official what already feels true in my heart." 6 months later, my divorce from Lisa was finalized. She pled guilty to money laundering charges and was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. The court granted me full custody of Mason, Lily, and Noah, with no visitation rights for Lisa until after her release and completion of court-mandated parenting classes. Emma and I got married the following spring in our backyard, with Mason, Lily, and Noah as our wedding party. Mason was the ring bearer. Lily scattered flower petals. Noah carried a sign that said, "Here comes our new mommy," in crayon letters that Emma had helped him practice writing. During the ceremony, when the officiant asked if anyone had objections to the marriage, 5-year-old Mason raised his hand and said, "I object to waiting any longer. Can they kiss now?" The laughter from our small group of family and friends was the perfect soundtrack for the beginning of our official life together. Emma adopted the children 6 months after our wedding, the day we went to court to finalize. The adoption was one of the happiest of my life. Watching my wife legally become the mother she'd already been in every way that mattered. But the most meaningful moment came that evening when we were putting the kids to bed. Noah, now 6 years old, and much more articulate than he'd been when Lisa left, looked up at Emma while she was tucking him in. "Emma," he said. "Yes, sweetheart." "Can I call you Mom now, since you're officially our mom?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as she kissed his forehead. "You can call me whatever feels right to you, Noah." "Mom feels right," he said matter-of-factly. "They've been taking care of us like a mom forever." Mason and Lily, overhearing from their beds, immediately chimed in with Mom and Mommy, trying out the words like they were tasting something delicious. 2 years later, Emma and I welcomed a daughter, Sophie, watching Mason, Lily, and Noah, with their baby sister, seeing how naturally they stepped into the role of protective big siblings, I realized how completely our family had healed from the damage Lisa's abandonment had caused. The children rarely ask about their biological mother anymore. They know she made choices that hurt people and that she's facing the consequences of those choices, but they also know they have a mother who shows up for every school play, remembers their friends' names, who celebrates their achievements and comforts them through their disappointments. Last month, Mason brought home a family tree project from school. When Emma saw that he'd written Mom next to her name and put Lisa under other relatives, she cried happy tears.
"Oh, you didn't have to do that," she told him. "Could have."
"Put your birth mother as Mom." "But you're my mom," Mason replied with the simple logic of a 7-year-old. "She's just the lady who had me before I knew you were going to be my real mom. Lisa will be eligible for parole next year. I don't know if she'll try to reconnect with Mason, Lily, and Noah when she's released, or if they'll want a relationship with her, but I do know that whatever happens, our family is strong enough to handle it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how everything turned out, if I wish Lisa had never left so we could have worked things out as a family. The truth is, I'm grateful every day that Lisa showed me who she really was before it was too late to find real happiness. Emma didn't just save me from a broken marriage, she saved Mason, Lily, and Noah from growing up with a mother who saw them as obstacles to her dreams instead of the best part of her life. She gave us all the chance to be genuinely loved and appreciated for who we are, not resented for who we prevented her from becoming. Our house is filled with laughter now, with the chaos of 4 children and 2 adults who actually want to be there. Emma's patience with homework help, her creativity with birthday parties, her genuine excitement about parent-teacher conferences. These are the gifts that Lisa's absence allowed us to discover. The triplets have a mother who chose them, who fought for them, who sees caring for them as a privilege rather than a burden. And I have a wife who sees our family as her greatest accomplishment, not something she needs to escape from to find herself. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.